How was your week, Chad? Did you do anything? I know you were kind of getting settled in Oklahoma there. How's
Yeah,
everything going for you?
so I'm just getting a lot of stuff done and looking, starting my business here in Oklahoma and just been running around like a chicken with my head cut off and get my family moved in. I took your advice. I went out and I got a Cat 5 cable, ran it to my satellite or, to my Starlink. So
Mm,
hopefully we have more bandwidth and less interruptions. But I know it takes a while for that Starlink to get settled.
nice. I bet it'll be a lot better if I had to guess, but that's awesome.
Yeah. What about you?
Oh man, just a lot of work this week and kind of back to fasting. So I'm on a 7-day fast right now, which is I've got 5 days into it right now. So that's going good, which I had to do 4 weeks of repriming because this is the 13th 7-day fast that I've had this year.
Mm,
And but on my 12th one about a month ago, my metabolism started to crash because I was just over fasted a little bit, and so I had to do a little reprime, and now my built my metabolism back up, and so now I'm back to fasting. All right, got
so,
some people
but
showing up. Yeah, go ahead.
between your fasts, I wanted to ask you, um, what right now? I know that you go up and down in weight pretty much on a daily basis, but
Mm-hmm.
how's your overall decline in weight happening? And like, what do you base that off of? I know it's not only scale that we're paying attention to, but
For
just like
sure.
the way you kind of look at it.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is I don't care too much about weight overall, but in the summer I've been maintaining about a 20 to 22. Well, yeah, 22 to 24 pound loss a month, basically all summer
Okay.
is what I've been maintaining. But I have been lifting more, and now we're going into the winter, so I'm going to assume that's going to slow down a little bit. And so it takes me about 3 days of a fast to get all the excess fluid off of me from it, because I eat for 7 days and then I fast for 7 days. And it takes the first 2 to 3 days, just gets me back down to zero, basically gets all the water out and kind of gets me to my foundation weight. And then I can start counting there. And I'll generally lose 6 to 7 pounds in that fasting week. And maybe even, well, 6 to 7 pounds in the fasting week, sometimes up to 8 or 9, especially if I'm working out and the more that I work out. But then even on the weeks that I'm eating, I'm still losing like 4 or 5 pounds. So it adds up to usually right around 22 pounds a month is where it's kind of been sitting. But I'm also lifting and putting on some lean body mass. So that's feeling pretty good too, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. So even though you're eating, I forgot you told me, but your caloric intake, I know, and this is just an argument that I would like to get into on this podcast. Um, what is your caloric intake if you had to guess?
Oh, if it's somewhere around the days that I am eating, I'm eating around 5,500 to 7,000 calories a day.
Right. And so if we were talking about calories in, calories out, what would your calories in look like?
Oh yeah, my calories in. Well, I mean, honestly, it's not terrible over the month, right? Because not eating half the month, but you know, I can also I ate 7,000 calories a day for 6.5 months solid. I gained 21 pounds, but then when I fasted, I lost that 21 pounds in 5 days because it was all fluid. But
Mhm.
I lost when I gained that 21 pounds in 6.5 months. I lost 3 shirt sizes, right? Which is kind of one of my favorite statistics. But right now, I'm eating, let's say, 6,000 calories on average. Uh, you know, let's say 15 days out of the times 15. So I'm eating about 90,000 calories a month. And if you take about 90,000 calories and divide that by 30 days, I'm eating 3,000 calories a day right now. So which is I could make an argument for probably eating more, to be honest with you. But I'm finally in a good spot where I'm just running pretty lean.
All right. And yeah, I really want to get into calories in, calories out on this week's podcast, but
Yeah.
tell us why you landed on 7-day fasting, why you started doing rolling 7 days.
I'm personally doing it because I noticed that, I have a lymphatic issue problem, lymphedema problem. And so for anybody that doesn't know, 22 months ago, I was over 700 pounds, and my right calf was 35 and a half inches in diameter, and my left calf was 36 and a half inches in diameter, which is
just
huge.
to give you an idea, like, not to interrupt, sorry, but I'm like, mine is 28 inches.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's just to give you a reference angle.
For sure. And that's lymphatic tissue, impacted tissue that's not supposed to heal, right? And I've already lost, what was it? I'd have to remeasure, but I've already lost somewhere around 9.5 inches on my right calf, and like 8.5 inches on my left.
Excellent.
And that's from the fasting. It's from the autophagy, right? It's so healing. And so I see so much healing in my body when I go on these fasts after about 72 hours. The healing's just incredible. And so that's why I opted for the longer fast. I could do rolling 48s and, eat for 48 hours, and get the same number of fast days in a month. But the ones over 72 hours, I've noticed, just have an incredible amount of autophagy that really helps,
I agree. And that's what the numbers start to show, is like there's some magic starts happening after about 48 hours, but some miracles start happening after that 72-hour mark. And then depending on how much extra fat you have on you, you can start to see diminishing returns at around 5 days. But in your case, 7 days seems to be like a magic.
It is. And I did OMADs for 9 months. Then I did like 36-hour fast and did rolling 36s, and then I did rolling 48s, then I did rolling 72s, then I did rolling 84s, where I'd eat for 3.5 days, fast for 3.5 days. And the problem was, out of all of those, I did not like the 84s. And the reason why is that a refeed. So when you fast over 72 hours, you can start to have a little bit of a refeed issue that takes a little bit of time to eat, to like reculture your gut microbiome. Like you can't really eat very much in the first day. You got to use a little bit of broth, let your gut reculture. And it might take you 24 hours before your digestive system is up to the task of digesting a bunch of meat again. So out of an 84-hour refeed and an 84-hour fast, I was spending 24 hours of it reconstituting my gut microbiome. So it gave me a smaller refeed window. So when that happened, I was like, well, if I'm going to have a 1 day, 24-hour refeed issue, I'd rather do this in 7 days. So then I started, eating in 7 day window, because the first day is a little bit touchy, and honestly, that's why I don't really know how many calories I'm eating a week, because on the first day it's really light, but like on the third, fourth day, it's really heavy. Like on the third and fourth day, I'm generally taking down 54 egg yolks a day, and I'm taking down 3 to 4 pounds of red meat in a day, and fat trimmings on the side. Where the first day I might literally only have 2 eggs and let that, 2 eggs and some bone broth, and let that reculture. And then the next day I might only eat 36 egg yolks and maybe a pound of meat, But then I start overreaching at the end of it, because now I'm bringing back my metabolism, and then my metabolism starts cranking, and I know when I'm sitting there knocking down 54 egg yolks and 3-4 pounds of meat that I'm ready. My metabolism's at the ceiling. Then I go into a fast, and I start with a dry fast, because I alternate 24-hour dry fast in there. So first day's dry, second day's wet, third day's dry, fourth day's wet, fifth day's dry, 6 days wet, and 7th day's dry. So I get 4 24-hour dry fasts in there, but it's with metabolism at peak, at the peak for me. It's running on all cylinders, and then that's just when my body feels the best,
So can you tell us a little bit more why you kind of are a big fan of 50-50 eating fasting, rather than like having it a little bit lopsided, one or the other?
It's just something that I settled on. I think for me, it's right because I have enough stored body fat still. I still have
Mhm.
over 100 pounds to lose. But I think for people that are having, that are just leaner than me and maybe not as fat adapt as me, I think that they need more feeding window and less fasting window.
Mhm.
But for me, where I'm sitting at, it's just something I settled on. For instance, when I went to Wyoming to Bella's wedding, I only I only refed for 3 days, and so I was in the middle of my rolling 7 day fast. But at that time, I didn't want to be fasting on the weekend when I was in Wyoming.
Mhm.
So what I did was I just refed for 3 days instead of seven, and then that way I could cut my fast short by an extra 4 days. Not short, but I could finish my fast 4 days sooner, so that I had the whole weekend when I was in Wyoming. And when I did that, everything was fine. I did my fast, finished it, went to Wyoming, did all that stuff. But then when I did my next 7 day fast, my metabolism crashed because I didn't have a big enough feeding window in
Mhm.
between. So I think it's an N equals one, but I think it's up to everybody. First of all, I could never do fasts like this consistently like I'm doing if I had not learned how to prime and nourish my body before I go into the fast. I
Mhm.
could never be successful fasting half the days out of the year if I didn't eat and reprime in between the fast correctly, if I wasn't taking it very serious and putting the nutrients in. And I would have never known that, that this was the right balance for me if I hadn't built this fasting muscle by building up to it and trying everything. That's why I
Mhm.
think it's really an N equals one. But I just noticed that I get the best results both in composition, healing, and weight loss that I'm looking for when I do. And there's other things that I have to combine in that. Like I have to get sun every day. I have to use the shake plate every day to get the lymphatic system to open up, because if you're going to access, I have a lymphatic issue, so I need the lymphatic system to open up because I need to be able to access the stored fat, right? I
Mhm.
need to be able to mobilize that stored fat. So I got to open up the lymphatic system every day. I got to get sunlight every day. I got to break a sweat every day. But those things, when I work them all together, they work really well for me.
Excellent. So, since uh like for somebody who maybe doesn't have as many fat stores, what would your probable recommendation be for somebody like me, for example, who's a little bit more of an athlete who still wants to get the optimal amount of fasting but without diminishing returns, and is probably around 10% body fat or less.
Yeah, I would make sure that you prime first, and even if you think you're primed, I would make sure that you're primed by doing the calendars. At least the first month of
Hmm.
calendars at SBG to make sure that you're primed. And then I would start off with their fasting calendar, which is doing OMADs for about a week, and then it goes into 36-hour fasts. You know, and then
Yeah.
you go to rolling 48s. I would think that rolling 48s, fairly consistently, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks of rolling 48s. You eat for 48 hours, you fast for 48 hours, and
Hmm.
then I don't know, once every, maybe 4 to 6 times a year you throw a 72 in there. you know and
Okay.
I think for you, because like that's my plan for maintenance fasting once I get to where I want to be. But right now I'm still in healing. But also, there's nothing wrong with you doing, like, if it's not for getting lean, but if it is for healing, there's nothing wrong with you priming and doing a 7 day fast too, just for healing, even though it's going to be a little bit rough on your metabolism because
Hmm.
you are a lot leaner than I am. It'll be rough on your metabolism. You'll be a little tired, but it'll still be very healing.
Yeah. So I right now I've been before I learned about priming, which Mist asked what is priming, which I want to address the question to Mist, and I'll allow you to address that
Yeah.
But the the thing for me is like I was doing 72-hour fasts before I even went full carnivore. I was just like animal based and doing fasts. And then once I went full carnivore, I struggled at the very beginning with like doing fasts again. And then I learned about priming. And so then I started to prime. And now fasting doesn't seem difficult for me. But I'm just wondering, once your metabolism is there, or like once my metabolism is there, what would you like? So, for example, based off the research I've been doing, I've been thinking about doing like 10 days on, 4 days off, because I want to hit that magic window after 72 hours. And I want to do it at least a couple times a month. So that would give me 8 days fasted within the month. And that would give me about 24 days, or sorry, 21 days, 21 days, right? Am I crazy?
Well, yeah, you'd be at 28 days total, right? Between 2 fasts and 2 primes.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So, no, I think that's a perfectly reasonable spot to start for sure. Yeah. So I would definitely try it. I would just work up to it, Like, I mean, how much fasting have you done? Much fasting before?
Like I said, I went like a year about doing 72-hour fast once a month.
Yeah.
And then now, since I've been fat adapted, or I consider myself more fat adapted, I probably do random, like whenever I'm feeling like it, like 3-day fast or a 4-day fast. And sometimes like it's just a random, like, oh, I haven't eaten the past couple of days. You know what I mean? Like, that's a little random. I would like to get on some sort of schedule for my body.
I gotcha. Yeah, no, I think, and that's why for me, breaking into it and building it up, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to shock your body into where it thinks that your food environment, like you're in a famine, right? Because that's what slows your metabolism down. So you kind of want to train up to it. What you're trying to say is, and this is, and to answer the priming question, priming is feasting, and then fasting is like hunting. And so you want to do, like, if you're not used to any fasting or haven't in a while, then you want to break in with some smaller fasts and build it up, so that, because you don't want to freak out your body and make it think that you're in a famine. So if you go straight into like a 48-hour fast or 36, and then you take it to like a 72, and then to like a 96-hour fast or whatever, if you do it that way and you build it up, but you reward it every time after the fast, you comfort your body and you make it feel safe by eating a lot and repriming, giving it all the nutrients that it needs, then it doesn't wig out. But if you just go from not priming beforehand, your body's not used to waiting that long, and then you go into it, it can kind of crash your metabolism and start you off on the wrong foot. You want a high metabolism when you're going in there. You want everything running, at its top rate, so that you're getting the most benefit out of it when you are fasting, and you don't want to be tired and sluggish and all those things. And what that's basically mimicking is, hey, we got to go on a hunt, and my body's going to keep my metabolism up because it knows I got to move and run. And so it's going to access stored fuel. It knows I'm going to run down this animal, kill it. We're going hunting, and then we're going to feast on it. But that means that when you do eat, you need to eat. You need to give it all the nutrients that it needs, and let it know that there's, that you can feast, that there's plenty of food in this land that your body can eat. And then your body kind of relaxes, and it'll let you go for extended period of times without eating, without getting worried. If your body gets worried that you're in a bad spot and it needs to conserve energy and calories, then it's going to drain your metabolism,
Absolutely. And you talk about eating. Get off my lawn 7000 said my dog ate a 10-ounce steak in 10 seconds the other day.
Right.
I hate it when they don't enjoy the food. I'm like, enjoy it.
Right. But I mean, isn't that funny? I have a 59-pound dog that eats like 2 to 3 pounds of beef every day, right? And just weighs 59 pounds. So that would be like, I don't know, me eating 10 pounds of beef or 12 or something a day, right? Something like that. And my dog doesn't get fat. My dog's not overeating. That's what it eats. That's what it naturally wants for food.
Right.
And she's a poodle, standard poodle, and she's 18 going on 19 years old, and she's not out running around. She's got some sore hips. So she's not putting out, running off all this energy, but that's her natural diet. And it's only, I'm just saying, I find that so crazy that my 59-pound dog can sit here and eat 2 to 3 pounds of beef every day, without fail. And then you have some people that think that they're overeating if they eat like a pound or a pound and a quarter of meat a day. You know what I mean? On carnivore.
Yeah, let's go ahead and address that if we can.
Yeah,
Is it okay for us to address that? Sorry,
absolutely.
I don't want to miss this opportunity to segue because that's perfect. Because right now the narrative is calories in, calories out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You just want to be in a calorie deficit. And how long have you been on a calorie deficit, and how successful was it for you?
Oh God. So I was 600 pounds when I was 14 years old. I've been on pretty much every calorie deficit diet that you could be. I mean, I dieted from the time I was, 14 years old until off and on until I was pretty much in my, I guess probably 32, 33. And then I kind of just gave up because I was completely sick of it. But the diets never worked. And looking back, I understand it now, but none of the calorie restrictive diets ever worked. The only diets that ever worked for me for a period of time was I would stop eating anything, and it was fasting, and I would fast for long periods of time. But as soon as the problem was, is I was never nourished, and I never had a high metabolism. I was just starving myself back then through fasting, and as soon as I would go back to try to eat, I hadn't satiated and healed my body and my metabolism and my mitochondria and my gut microbiome, and I hadn't addressed all these eating, disordered eating problems that I had. So as soon as I would start eating again, I'd just gain it all back and then some, because now my body was in a hurry to get this food back. It wasn't sure because I'd go on these long, like literally I would eat like 2,000 calories a week. So I would eat twice a week, about 1,000 calories each time. And I did that for 17 months. I was eating 2,000 calories a week for 17 months. And as soon as I started eating again, I gained all the weight back and then some, because I was just absolutely causing metabolic disease, hurting my metabolism.
Right. Here's kind of my beef. But here's kind of like my issue with what's been going on with this calories in, calories out kind of talk right now is the binge eating, right?
For sure.
And so, like right now, when you fast and then you end your fast, you don't binge eat. Like you said, it's kind of like it's a slow, like you feel like you're going to be hungry, but then you kind of fill up very quick,
For
right?
sure.
And so, my thing is, when we are doing this calorie deficit, what your body, it's like when people binge eat, I don't think anybody, like, unless you've been in that situation, you don't really understand what binge eating means. But it's like your brain turns off, you like black out. And then when you come to, you've eaten a whole carton of ice cream, or you've eaten like a ridiculous amount of weird food. And you're like, what just happened to me? And and people say like, I don't have any control. What your body is doing in that moment, your body is literally turning off the logical part of you. The animal part of you is taking over, like, you stupid idiot. You're starving us. We need all the nutrition we can get. And so not only does their food that they normally eat have a lack of nutrients in general, right? And anti-nutrients, and it's inflammatory, but at least it's fuel, and at least it's some nutrition.
For
And so
sure.
when you go into a calorie deficit, now think of how little, like what differential amount of nutrients is in the little bit of garbage now that you are now limiting into your diet and into your face. And so your body, in order to live, in order to survive, to get any sort of amount of protein, it has to go into a binge eat. And so that's what I think binge eating is your body bypassing the logical part of you in order, right? In order to live, to survive. And we call that now a lack of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
so I completely get it though, because I've binged before.
For sure.
You know what I mean? On calorie deficit type diets and this calorie in, calorie out BS. And what's insane to me is there's this other study. There's this other study that got shown with the Coke, the Diet Coke, or the Coke Zero rather, the
Mm-hmm.
milk and the water. And so you already know this one, but the anybody who's listening, is that they had these groups of people. I think it was for 6 months, right? 6 months. It was like, this is the only beverage that you'll get to drink other than water, right?
For
And
sure.
one was Coke, one was Coke Zero, I believe, and the other was milk, and the other was water, right? And so the people who switched and were only on water lost a bunch of weight. The people who went on milk maintained weight. And then what was very trippy is, well, obviously we expected the people who are on the regular sugar soda, anyway, they gained like 20 pounds or something, a ridiculous amount of weight within a certain amount of time. And
Right.
then what was very interesting is, what did we expect from the 0 calorie, the Coke Zeros, right?
Right.
And they ended up gaining weight. So that's the thing. It's not calories in, calories out. They actually went down in the amount of calories that they were eating, and they still gained weight. So not only is this calorie in, calorie out just not notion a complete farce and joke, but in addition to that, when you start to blame how many calories that you're putting in your body will literally start going to actual deprivation of nutrients for survival. It will turn off the logical part of your brain. The animal part of your brain will come over, and you will just, I guess, what's the term? Like see red, right? For food.
Right.
And that's it. You're done. There's no stopping you after that point.
Well, yeah, and how I explain it now, and I mean, I love that explanation. That's 100% right, because the problem with calorie restrictive diets, and we're going to be very clear. I'm going to say this, and then we'll go into why their calorie restrictive diets even exist as the mainstream narrative. But the problem with calorie restrictive diets is, like, literally, it's the same instinct, like, of holding your breath. Like, how long can you hold your breath before you finally have to take a breath? Like, quite literally, right? When you're doing that to your body and you continue to restrict, I mean, obviously it's not as fast as holding your breath, but at a certain point, your brain is just screaming out, because the crap that you're eating is completely nutriently deficient, right? And you're already starving yourself, and you're not hitting you're not hitting any of the off signals. Like, when you're on the standard American diet, you get insulin resistance for pretty much everybody. Even if you don't have diabetes, you likely have pre-diabetes, and you're still insulin resistant, and that causes leptin. Blocks the signals for leptin, which is your satiety hormone. And so that's why people end up overeating, because they get ravenous. Like you're saying, your body sees red, it wants the food. And the only way you can shut that signal down in your brain to be giving you all those signals is to hit the stretch mark sensors in your stomach, which is your other satiety off switch. But, the thing is everything is screwed up. It's not right, because we're eating highly processed, hyper palatable, empty calories. We're never getting the nutrients that we need. And so we're not getting, we're not healing our gut microbiome. We're not healing our body. We're not satiating our body, and we're never filling this massive void that we have, in nutrients in our body. However, we've made it so synonymous that restricting is the way to health, because if you are overweight, then you need to eat less. And if you would just eat less, you would stop being overweight. And the weight is the cause of your disease. The weight is the cause of your sickness, right? But the reality of it is that the weight is a parallel symptom, because our bodies aren't healthy. We're metabolically sick. And the reason why the mainstream narrative is calorie restrictive is because if they admit that there is different types of calories, if they admit that the type of calorie matters, then we will all be able to point the finger back and make liable big food that's been selling us poison for forever, causing these problems.
Yeah, exactly. What you're saying. So if we start having the conversation about calories, then a calorie is this over umbrella term that classifies all food, all input, rather than segregating the food, right?
Right.
And then this thing about carbs, protein, or the macros, carbs, protein, fat, it's not talking about the quality. It's not talking, you know what I mean? It's not talking about the type or the source, or it doesn't break it down. They use these umbrella terms to make us treat it all as equal, which it's not the case whatsoever. And you know what's even more interesting about that, which is why a lot of people say like to hold off on like ground beef and other things, is your satiety signals are also triggered by how tired your jaw gets when you're chewing too. So it wants to chew a lot. So in addition to that, a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of people, our ancestors used to get their hydration from their food. And so a lot of people don't realize hunger and thirst oftentimes get mixed up. So what's very interesting is when we have these tens of thousands of scientists who are engineering your food to make you hungrier after you've eaten, also in order for that food to have the proper shelf life, it needs to be dehydrated, which makes you dehydrated, which oftentimes makes you hungrier as well. Yeah. And protein's expensive to put on the shelves, so there's a lack of protein. It's very cheap and very addictive to eat high fat, high carbs together to hit that what's it called, the sweet spot in your palate, right?
Yeah.
What's also scary about that combination is that there's this thing that a lot of people, nutritionalists, refer to as a protein leverage hypothesis, which means that you will eat until you get not only the amount of nutrients that you need, but the amount of protein that you need. And most of the food on the shelves are very lacking in protein. And so you will eat until you get enough protein. You will eat until your jaw is tired. You will eat until your stomach stretches. And if all those foods have leptin inhibitors, right, then you're not getting that signal from your stomach. And so it's just this repetitive cycle where you're hungry immediately. And I saw this comedian, this really big comedian, who made a joke that he was around the world in 80 buffets, where he was going around the world. Yeah. And he talks about how in the Chinese buffet that you're either full, like you're about to throw up, or you're starving again in a second. Right. And it's because like with the high carbs and the high fats that they put in there, it's exactly hijacking these mechanisms of our brain to make them profitable. And we are suffering because of our health. And when we go to say, okay, what's causing, there's obviously a problem. What's causing it? They say calories in, calories out. And then they say genetics. And they completely put the blame off the fact that they are poisoning the environment and poisoning you, and then gaslighting you to say it's your own fault. And I have some beef with that, literally. Oh. It's insane to me that we bought into this. And I bought into it. Everybody has bought into it. It's just eat less and move more. Sure. It's as easy as that, but it's not, because I was a personal trainer. No matter how many people we put in a calorie deficit, it would be less than 10% would see results. And the only people that would see results were usually people who had a metabolism that they built up like they were an athlete in high school or something like that, or as a child. But everybody else wouldn't see results, and then they were just suffering. And we were saying, as the professional, you're suffering not enough, and that's the reason why you're not seeing results.
Right, I know, which is so funny, right? Like this, like I said, I was 600 pounds when I was 14. So I've been to all these dietitians and doctors, right? Why didn't any of, this is when, when I finally started finding my way out of this, this blame game, this guilt game that they play with you, I just started asking myself these questions when I started learning things. But why is it that none of the dietitians ever said, we don't just eat for fuel. We eat, if somebody would have just told me, we don't just eat for fuel, we eat for building blocks. We eat for nutrients. Mm-hmm. And when you eat hyper palatable carbohydrates, processed food, you're eating all this fuel that's turning to fat, but you are not eating any building blocks. And that's one of the reasons that your body is always calling for more food. And I mean, it's a double-edged sword, because it's calling for nutrients that you're not giving it, but it's also you're causing hormone problems that are causing cortisol, and you're using dopamine hits to like self-medicate through all these cortisol, anxiety, depression, all that stuff. You keep treating that over and over again with these stupid dopamine fixes, because we have become little sugar drug addicts. And then we go through this cycle, and then what they tell us is to restrict. So it's literally like, telling an alcoholic to restrict how much of the alcohol he's going to drink a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that he doesn't get his fix. And then that way they can put it back on you and say, well, it's not the food that's the problem, it's your willpower. You're just not
Mm-hmm.
trying hard enough, you're just not disciplined enough, there's something wrong with you. And they work that whole guilt angle, but then they go, but the good news is that we have a pill for that. We can get you some medication. We can help you. You need medication and therapy and diet pills and probably a bariatric surgery to handle this. And they tell you all these things, but the same people that are invested in the food companies that they're pushing down our throat are the same people that are invested in the drug companies that's the cure for the problems that the food are causing. And it's just this ginormous money game. And we see it being played. And the only thing, so they won't tell you that building blocks matter. They won't tell you that you're eating for two different reasons. They won't tell you any of that, but they will absolutely tell you to not eat animal fat or beef, or red meat, ruminant animal fat. Don't eat that. That's absolutely bad for you. When I was over 700 pounds and in the ICU, they never worried about my diet. They never sent me in a dietitian to figure out my diet.
Right.
They just told me about all the drugs I needed to be on. It was when I went carnivore, lost 205 pounds, and got off all the medications that my cardiologist told me he was worried about my diet.
Yeah. Yeah. When you said, hey, I did all this by going carnivore. Oh, now diet's involved. Now I need to start recommending your diet. Like,
right.
It's crazy. You got off all the medications. So it's like all right, good. That was the result we wanted. But I suggest that you go back to the diet that was making you sick.
Right.
And I'm sure you've seen this, but for the people watching, there's that meme going around right now where it's like you take your dog into the vet, and it was like, my dog's having these problems. What are you feeding him? Oh, we need to change up the diet. We need to go to more this, that, and the other thing. Bam. Your dog's better. Oh, snap. Diet was related to that. Okay. You know what I mean? Humans,
Totally.
not even. Let's get them on this drug, that drug. And it's like we are getting worse healthcare than our damn dogs.
Right.
What is going on? How is this the case? Like, how is it the case that veterans are doing a better job attributing diet and lifestyle for animals than doctors, right? And I'm not saying a vet's not a doctor, but then people who specialize in humanity, and they're the what apparently they have all the research that we spend more than anybody on healthcare in the world, and we have the sickest nation in the world. That's the best you have. And with all these years, with all this research, with all the funding, with all the knowledge, with all the textbooks, with all the hundreds of thousands of dollars in professors and universities and parking passes, for God's sake, for that university. You're telling me this is the best result you have? Because let me tell you something. If I was a hedge fund manager and I kept losing my business money, I kept losing my boss money every single quarter, and the numbers kept getting worse and worse, I wouldn't have a damn job. Right. However, doctors keep getting to produce worse and worse and worse scenarios and worse numbers. And they're like, you got to pay me more. I got to get more money. I got to get more funding. How is that? How is this the reality that we live in? Sorry, I obviously have been thinking about this for the past week.
No, I mean, it's absolutely correct. I know I feel the same way because I sit here and go, I've always said that the medical system is crazy, right? Because if I had a mechanic that said, hey, I can't fix your car today because my car broke down, and so I can't make it to work, I wouldn't go to that mechanic over and over again, right? When you go and you see a doctor that, first of all, the number one cause of death for cardiologists is heart disease, right? So it's like, why are they dying why is, if they're preaching to us about what to eat and they have all the answers, why are they dying of heart attacks and heart disease at the same rate that we all are? And then how many of you have gone in there and looked at your doctor? I mean, this happens to me. I haven't seen a doctor, but like when I go in with my mom and stuff and my sister, I start looking at my doctors and I see the inflamed standard American diet face on them. I see them with the dark circles. They're pounding their coffee and their energy drinks. And I'm sitting here going, I think I'm in better shape than you guys are right now. You know what I mean? And you guys are the doctors, you know? And then you see some of these doctors that just look like they're in terrible shape. And it's like, I don't know how we let these people be in charge of our health, you know?
Well, not only doctors, but nurses and usually the whole entire healthcare industry from A to Z. Most of them, when I go into a hospital, don't look healthy. It's like usually the people at the front desk are the healthiest, and then all the people providing medical care and medical advice and administering medications are not healthy. And that's what, like, I think it's fueled by a bunch of different things, by stress, by not eating a proper diet. They work crazy hours and all this stuff, but they are not usually a clean bill of health. And they're the ones who are in charge of everybody's health, and like on a legal status too. So like if you try to provide health or you claim to be a healthcare professional, you could get sued. You could even there are plenty of things can happen to you legally. So they have like a stronghold over the market as well. And so even the word dietitian, the Seventh-day Adventists have gotten a hold of these words like dietitian and legal system. Like you can't call yourself a dietitian unless you meet a certain amount of requirements. So people online kept getting in trouble for calling themselves a dietitian. They're like, what? I study diet. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think a new term that we should start saying is a dietologist. We just study diet, right? And we study what happens to it. But it's just weird that they have a stronghold on the market, and with that stronghold, it's so corrupted and so manipulated by so many varying factors that we're just the ones who are screwed. And then it's a stigma to start Googling your own health, for you to take your health into your own hands and no longer outsource your health and well-being and your lifestyle. They say, don't be Dr. Google. Oh, great. I bet you Googled it. Okay. You know what I mean? Like it's a stigma for you to take your health into your own hands. So like, you have to be a social misfit in order to achieve your optimal health in life, or you just have to be completely dependent on them. And then thank goodness for people like Dr. Chafee, Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Bart, or Professor Bart Kay, Dr. Sean Baker, right? And Dr. Phil, that we have these people who are going up and speaking out. But you know how dangerous that is. Not too long ago, doctors who spoke up about a certain viral infection that came up recent years were being silenced on social media and losing their medical licenses. This is insane that we live in a day and age where speaking truth can get you completely silenced and complete you out of your profession. That's to me that reminds me of a certain Germany in 1939 to 1945. Like it. The information police. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, 100%. Hey, I'm going to answer a question. I can't pull it up on StreamYard because it's on my Instagram.
Okay.
But it's called the Really Real Teacher. It says, how long have you both been carnivore? Want to go first, Chad?
Absolutely. So they define carnivore, right, as over 70% meat. So by technical definition, I've been carnivore for almost 2 years now. But to be honest, if I were to go by the carnivore diet, in which was more defined by like Sean Baker, and the fact that I haven't eaten a vegetable in over a year, I would say. And then I gave up. I've been strict carnivore in terms of not having any dairy and things like that. And so like lion diet for the past few months, like maybe what, oh crap, what month is it now? I think I started in like March. I think I've been telling people how long I've been doing this. So anyway, like 7 months I've been on that. And then the past few months I've been grass-fed ruminant animals only. And when I say grass-fed ruminant animals, I mean the whole animal. I'll eat the brains, the bone marrow, other organs, and then usually the fattiest cuts I can find. So that's my answer to that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been strict carnivore for 22 months now, going on 23 months, and yeah, it's just been crazy. It was I was in bad shape 22 months ago. I was over 700 pounds. I was on oxygen. Couldn't really get out of a chair. had congestive heart failure. My oxygen was pretty rough. And my like even on 6 liters of oxygen, my oxygen was 88% saturation. My resting heart rate was like 107 beats a minute. It was pretty ugly. And so in 22 months, I've lost 310 pounds, got off all the medication, off all the oxygen, got off the CPAP machine. Just a new human being. I still have 100 pounds or so to lose and some skin surgeries to have done. But the good news is just I don't have any eating disorders anymore. So it's quite incredible. For me, that's why I'm doing this, is because we got to get the word out.
You were literally like on your deathbed at one point.
Oh, I was for
And
sure.
thank goodness, like you found COVID right before COVID, or yeah, you found Carnivore right before COVID hit.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And like certain other aspects of your life were having you, but when you show those pictures, I know you say it, but like the pictures do it justice. It's a rare time where a picture does it justice. Where
Mhm.
you look like you were best friends with death.
Oh yeah, I was dying. Let's see if I can find the montage here, and I'll pull it up.
Yeah. And
Yeah, it
then
was.
while you're looking that up, I just wanted to tell. I know you asked how long we were carnivore, but also from my end, I healed quite a few things. I had PTSD, I had anxiety, phobias, panic disorder, brain fog, and only what I could possibly describe as schizophrenia. But that was I never told anybody about it until very recently, and because I was scared of becoming an inpatient somewhere, and that's completely gone. And I would say my anxiety is 98% gone, and everything else is 100% gone. And I'm pretty sure my anxiety at this point is just normal. You get anxious when things happen rather than the actual like disorder that I used to have. And so if I got rid of my disorder, I would say it's my disorder is 100% gone. I used to have digestive issues. Oh, damn, look at that.
Yeah, that
I
was. And I'm actually 100 pounds lighter than this picture even right now. That was. I just haven't updated this, but that was me at the worst, and that's when I was not feeling too good. I was stuck in that chair as 715 plus pounds, and I was on this oxygen every day.
it
This
looks
is
like
yeah.
it looks like gravity was your worst enemy in that picture on your left. And
Oh yeah,
then, like on this picture on the right, at least from my angle, with you in the cowboy hat on the bottom right,
yeah,
it looks like gravity is working the opposite direction for you. Like it's like you had a whole lift, like your spirit lifted, your face lifted, the angle of your eyes even freaking lifted, your mouth and your facial hair
for
even
sure.
lifted. You like look at that.
Yeah, it was day and night difference. It really isn't. What was it crazy is that you know that literally my composition changed and my frame changed. Like my body, the way my like skeletal structure sits is actually completely different now. It's really weird.
Mm,
But I grew like an inch in height because I think all that weight and the poor posture and the way that my body was sitting was pulling me down pretty bad, and it was causing all sorts of knee pain, and everything just straightened up. It was crazy. It was really crazy.
yeah, and so the other I wanted to get back real quick to the other things that I cured by going carnivore were my digestive issues. Like I used to have acute flu-like symptoms like 3 to 4 times a week, where like for 8 hours I would be. It felt like someone was dragging barbed wire through my digestive system. I had it coming out both ends. I was throwing up. I was diarrhea. I like every single digestive issue, acid reflux. I felt like I was passing stones all the time. I just was miserable, massive migraine that would put me down for the count. Where it's like whatever I was doing, it's like, nope, I'm down. And between that and my mental problems, I was not actively suicidal, but I contemplated
Mm.
death a lot. And so uh, those were some of the biggest things that. And you know what's crazy? And you talk about this a lot too. Is how many things that you didn't realize that you had. You know what I mean? That, for example, like not giving, like my wife makes fun of me now because I legit do not give a shit what other people think. Like I do not care what other people think. I'm like freed from like the power that they have over me. I'm freed in so many different ways. But everyone's like, I don't care what other people think, but you kind of like really do. And then like once you hit to a certain level, you're like, oh, I should probably care a little bit more because I've gone too far. But
For
like,
sure.
but other things about me where I just have like this freedom and liberation about what's it called? Like perception of life, perception of ego, spirituality, things where I had no idea I was in the fog until I was out of the fog. I had no idea how blurred my life was and what veil was hanging over all aspects of my life until I came out of it. And I think that's one of the true untalked about or hidden benefits of moving into a carnivore diet, or at least a healing type diet where you're on the proper human diet, and you can really see how intelligent your body is, but how much your body can achieve when left alone and given the proper nutrients.
For sure. Yeah, 110%. Let's see. Jaylee Baker, do you ever get frustrated with carnivore or feeling healing is taking a long time? So yes, but I did at first. Um, I did at first until I joined the Steak and Butter Gang, and I get no payment, or there's no money in it for me for saying that. But the truth is, I didn't do most of my healing until I primed, because I still had that old standard American diet brain that thought that less was more, that I still needed to control this appetite, that my eating, whatever disorder, eating crap, eating too much, whatever you want to call it, was something that I need to get under control. I never, I never considered just letting your body eat the proper diet and let it do it at its own pace, that it would heal. So, but once I did the priming and my body healed, it took 6.5 months. I plateaued for, actually, realistically, I plateaued for like 8.5 months, 9 months. 6.5 of which I was priming for, which is just means nourishing your body, eating a lot with a purpose. But that was when everything started to heal, and it just makes more sense to me now, because your body, basically, you need to get your body in a safe spot where it's like, okay, we're healthy, we have the nourishment, we have the nutrients, we're not under attack, we're not in a famine. You have to show it all these things, which means you got to do a lot. You got to get good sleep. You got to get your circadian rhythm set. You got to get on a schedule. You got to get, you need to be up. You need to go to bed at a good time. You need to get good sleep. You need to get up at a good time. You need to go outside and get some sun. You need to see the horizon and kind of sync your circadian rhythm. And you need to do all that with nourishing your body, and your body will heal and it'll start running. The diet being the biggest part of it, right? But all these things helped, and finally it kicks loose. And then when your body's in a safe spot and it's running good, it'll just dump the weight. It'll just dump. All of a sudden you'll dump 100 pounds. Like when I got back from Texas, I lost like 85 pounds, like in just a few months. Like my body just, and I sat there and I couldn't hardly lose a pound for 8 months, and then all of a sudden I lose like 85 pounds in a couple months, and it just dumped it because my body was in a good spot and everything was felt safe, and it just gets rid of it. It really has been how it's worked for me.
I felt frustrated when I first went carnivore. I think this is like where Steak and Butter Gang thrives, right? Is when you're first going carnivore, you're seeing all these successful carnivores, and like we're all talking about what we do. This is what I eat in the day, and blah blah. But like we've become fat adapted. We've gone through the work. You know what I mean? And so people are trying to emulate that. And though this is going to be very cocky to say, I'm stealing this example from somebody else, not to talk to us, but it's kind of like going, like when I look at Anthony Chafee and I'm like, okay, I'm going to copy what he's doing because it's obviously working for him. That's like watching Tiger Woods go and tee off, you know what I mean? And then like, okay, I'm just going to do exactly what he's doing. You know what I mean? There's a lot of foundation that you have to lay in order to make those kinds of results happening. So, well, I think it's very important that Steak and Butter Gang is out there, because their profession is getting you from not knowing anything about carnivore, or maybe not knowing anything about diet, to getting you fat adapted. They do a great job of in the transition, and that's kind of like where they thrive in the marketplace. And that's where I heard your story first was Ray and Bella, they were kind of giving you an interview and you were talking about it. I heard about this priming thing, and I reached out to Ray in a private message about this priming thing, and he kind of gave me some information on it. But I was frustrated because I was like, I only need to do 1 meal a day because that's what my ancestors did, and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, you're asking your body to be Tiger Woods right now, and you just learning how to golf, dude. Like, and
sure.
so let's go ahead and like to start holding the stick right. Let's go ahead and start putting a little bit. You know what I mean? Let's start learning a little bit about the drivers. So, anywho, I know I was gonna answer CC earlier. I think it shows up like this in the live, but in the recording, I think it gets flipped back around in my experience. But I'm gonna double check on that.
No worries.
What was I just saying? Oh yeah. So anyway, Steak and Butter Gang, great job. So if you're feeling frustrated when you first go to it, it's because you're completely changing fuel sources. You're completely changing the entire way your body operates. And your cells, they have a preferred fuel source. And what's going on right now is as you change that entire mechanism, not only are you changing your fuel source, but you're changing the mechanism in which it is able to burn that fuel source. So you have to change the entire structure of your body as it goes into it. So give your body time, but also give your body the proper resources to heal. It's just like what Todd is saying, right? You do your priming and give as much food as possible, because most people's end goal is a weight and scale, and they've always been taught like you lose more weight if you eat less food. But that's not what we're looking at here. And that's why I've had this beef with calories in and calories out. It's not about the calories in and calories out. It's about the type of fuel that you're burning, and therefore the type of environment that's burning that fuel, which is your body. When your body adapts, that's when you will see results. And so right off the bat, make the sacrifice and feeling a little bit crappy and giving your body as much fuel as it can in that transition. I know it's frustrating, but I promise nothing good is accomplished quickly. So go through it, allow your body to go through the suffering, and know that on the other side, that's when you're going to start realizing, oh, this is why they do rolling 48s and this is why they do this. But they didn't do that until they earned that, right?
For sure.
They didn't earn rolling 48s. And so what sucks is people listen to that in the carnivore, how to eat like a carnivore, how to eat like my ancestors, and you make mistakes like me. And once I primed and I started eating as much as I could until I was finally to the point where I felt like the healing was finally coming. I started having energy. I started in jiu-jitsu. I started competing like a vicious animal. That's when I was like, I would have never gotten here without priming, I don't think.
Yeah.
I would have never gotten here without priming. And so anyway, that's where the Steak and Butter Gang goes in. So if you're having frustrations, please find an online community. I prefer the Steak and Butter Gang, but find people who are willing to talk about the transition into carnivore, because for us, it was only this much time in our carnivore journey, so we tend not to talk about it enough. But for you, that's 100% of the frustration in the transition. So we need to do our due justice in talking about it more. So,
for sure. Hey, Kat, I appreciate you. Kat is the first person that ever followed me on Instagram. I still remember. That's awesome. Your transformation into a healthier person is amazing. So happy for you. Thanks so much, Kat. I appreciate it. It was it was a Hail Mary, and thank God it worked. So I didn't know what else to try, and it was a Hail Mary for sure. That and prayer, had to give it to God, and yeah, it worked out incredibly. And now it's funny, but this is what this is what people need to hear, right? People like me, for sure. People like Lindy. I saw Lindy was in here. Shout out to anybody that doesn't know Limitless Lindy, and go check hers out. She's lost 500 pounds. She makes me look like a lightweight for what I've done. So Lindy's awesome. We do a show together on Sundays. But yeah, that's incredible. But yeah, I appreciate it. And this would be a good time to say as well. There she is. Hey, Lindy. This would be a good time to say too. I put for those of you, first of all, I'm on Instagram Live too. This is the first time I've ever hooked this to StreamYard. So, and I just realizing today I've never gone live on Instagram. So hi to all my Instagram followers. It's awesome. I see you in here. Please put a Q in front of your questions if you'd like to ask anything. And I appreciate you guys hopping in. And we're gonna make this more of a common thing on Instagram. I'm still getting used to it. I've never done it, especially through the software. So forgive me if I'm missing any comments, but I think I'm getting them. And also, if you are watching on YouTube, in the description of this video is SBG's Steak and Butter Gang's link. If you want to join up there, me and Chad donate some time there. We do a call on Saturdays, and I also do an open chat there. I run the open chat on Saturdays, and you can come in and kind of see what the community is about. But me and Chad do a call called Iron Sharpens Iron, just like this one, but it's more centered on men's mental health and anxiety, depression, PTSD, those types of things, healing with Carnivore. And I also want to put a shout out to, in the description as well, we are going to be speaking the Steak and Butter Gang. Some of us are going to be speaking, me, Bella, possibly Lindy, even Dr. Phil, Carnivore Amy. I'm trying to remember all the people, but we're on a panel for Hack Your Health, which was previously KetoCon, that's coming to Tampa. And so we have the link, and they gave us a coupon code for our members, and that gets them $100 off their ticket, which is pretty incredible. That's as cheap as it'll ever be. And that's actually a very good deal, because later, after the end of this month, it goes to $50 off and then $25. So just wanted to shout that out too. So, and then also for everybody on my channel, you should check out Chad at Combat Carnivore's channel too. He's got
awesome. Thank you. Yeah, go check me out if you haven't already. Combat.carnivore. I'm on YouTube and Instagram. I technically have a Facebook page floating around there, but I haven't been on there since Vietnam. So it's, but yeah, guys, I would be greatly appreciated. My goal is, as you guys can see here, healing vets through steak strangles and stoicism. Sorry if it's backwards. From on, maybe I'll just do it the correct way. I just like mirroring my screen so I can point to the right places. But I own a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu academy. I am very obsessed with philosophy and theology and spirituality and things like that. And then obviously Carnivore. And I believe these are the three pillars to get broken men, especially veterans, back into being strong men, and to repairing them, and to making sure that they know that PTSD is not a life sentence, right? It's actually something that should be a stepping stone to making you stronger. And if it's a big stepping stone, it's going to be a lot of work. But once you're up there, you're to a new level. And right now, people are the stepping stone of PTSD, and it
we lost him for just a minute. I think his satellite's reconnecting. He's there.
Sorry.
There you go. You're back.
Where did I cut out?
I forgot. To be honest with you.
No problem. But anyway, all right. I was trying to get vets back to being strong again, and realize that PTSD is not a life sentence. It's a stepping stone, right? And I believe that I healed myself with steak strangles and stoicism, and that's basically the mind, body, and soul. And that being said, something that satisfies the animal part of your brain, something that satisfies the human part of your brain, and something that satisfies the spiritual part of your brain, in the sense that every single day that you should do something that reminds your body that's an animal. Every single day you should do something that reminds you that you're uniquely human. And so something that humans can do that animals cannot do. And then every single day you should work on the part of yourself that is humanly unique, that makes you unique over any other person. And that's usually in spirituality, philosophy, theology, and things like that, where you think for yourself and you don't allow others to think for you. And you build those critical thinking skills. So anyway, if you go and you follow me and you like my stuff, you comment and you help get my channel out, it's going to help me get this message out to more veterans. Right now, 22 vets a day are committing suicide. And those numbers are atrocious. You're 4 times more likely to die by suicide than you are to die in the war on terror. So to me, that's pretty atrocious, and I think it's completely avoidable. I was almost one of those statistics. So my entire goal is to reach as many combat vets and as many people, men especially, who are suffering from mental illness, and get their life back on track. So thank you so much for the shout out, Todd. And so, yeah, you people go combat.carnivore, find me on Instagram and YouTube, start following and engaging. I would greatly appreciate it.
For sure. Sorry. I was fixing something here. I forgot. I think my Instagram just died. So that was another funny thing, is I guess that Instagram will only run for an hour.
It's an hour limit. Yeah.
I gotcha. So
do you believe aversion therapy should be part of the treatment for PTSD and mental conditions? Aversion therapy? No, I don't. As an aversion away from, isn't aversion to therapy is like away from running away from the symptoms? Oh, not the symptoms, the triggers. Hold on. Let me double check on that.
No worries.
I don't want to be misquoting anything. I believe that for people with PTSD, especially if it's combat related PTSD, that simulating combat is one of the best things that you could do for those people, because right now what's happening is their hippocampus is compromised, and the hippocampus is what remembers traumatic events, and then your amygdala is what triggers those events. And so what happens is your amygdala becomes swollen, while at the same time the volume of your hippocampus goes down. And so as the amygdala, it's called amygdala hijacking, where random things start to send signals to your hypothalamus to release fight or flight signals. And that is like basically a panic attack. And then your hippocampus remembers that. And so it's like this horrible cycle going back and forth of a dysregulated system. And our goal with simulating combat in a place like Jiu Jitsu, where there's a community, where there is a hierarchy, where there's camaraderie, where there's people where you trust, where you bleed together, sweat together, cry together. And it's everything there is earned, right? Like every single person, where you stand, where you rank, what's on your belt is earned. There's nobody that's given anything. There's no time given belts. There's no, you know what I mean? You know exactly who you can beat up and who can beat you up. And everybody has earned that right through trial and error, through going through the gauntlet to be where they are. And so there's no question about that. I think that's very good for men's mental health, is to be in an environment like that. And so aversion therapy, as I look it up, and aversion therapy causes a patient to reduce or avoid an undesirable behavior pattern by conditioning him to associate the behavior with an undesirable stimulus. The chief stimuli used in therapy is electrical and chemical. No, I would actually not like to add more stress to the system that is overstressed. I don't like that as a foundation, and it didn't work for me. The thing that worked for me, first and foremost, you can't heal a body that you continuously poison. So no matter how many times I tried cognitive behavioral therapy, despite all the times I tried all these different drugs and SSRIs and talk therapy and psychotherapy and all this other stuff. And I was about to say a bad thing about it, but I shouldn't. But as many times as I tried those things, and I worked really hard on it, because it was killing me, right? It was, I was desperate to try anything. I was meditating for like a good amount of time every day. I was doing binaural beats. I was trying every diet that there was out there. But regardless, I was so inflamed, and the macro and the micro systems that were happening in my body, those mechanisms were so far off that even when I did the right movements, there was still, it was burning in here. And so it's like, you can keep, like, let's say the house is on fire. It doesn't matter how much like proper material you keep giving it. And you're like, man, this house won't rebuild itself. I keep trying, but the house is on fire. You got to put out the fire first. Right. And so that's where a proper human diet comes in. I did not see results after 10 years of trying all these different things until I gave myself a system that allowed that healing, that nourished that healing. And then maybe aversion therapy might be something there, or like EMDR, where it's like the light, where it's like you're forcing lateralization in the brain. So as you're recalling traumatic events, it's able to go to the frontal cortex. Oh, by the way, thanks for the sub. I appreciate you. And so as even though those things may work in cognitive behavioral therapy, may work in aversion therapy, they may work, and they might all have evidence. And logotherapy is actually one of my favorite. Though they might have success rates, I think that they have varying success rates because a lot of people's brains are inflamed. A lot of their mitochondria are not working. A lot of their macro systems aren't aligned correctly anymore. And so because of that, we see varying results with that. However, it would be my personal belief that aversion therapy would not be ideal in the sense that adding stress to a system that is trying to learn how to heal. And what we need to do is show the body that it's safe through different exposures. And like, for example, stoicism, which is putting you in charge of your responses and making sure that you are not just a trigger or a response to your environment. And then things like jujitsu. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. And then that jujitsu, which simulates that idea where it's like you are being crushed by this dude. You go into a state of fight or flight. And even though that you're having a panic attack because this guy feels like he's killing you and crushing you, you're still in a safe environment. You can get out of that situation at any time. And then by the time you make it to the other side, you realize, oh, I survived the combat. This combat's making me stronger. And so you start showing your body in a sense that the combat that you experienced in the past doesn't need to stay in the fight or flight, because now when I experience combat, I can meet it with conviction and confidence. So I know that was a lot of speaking to answer that question, but I hope I did a decent job. And thank you for bringing up aversion therapy. I remember looking that up a long while ago, but I didn't get too far into depth with it. I was usually like into logotherapy and cognitive behavioral therapy, talk therapy, and psychotherapy. So thank you for that.
Yeah, when I was hearing that, I was just thinking of this. This is one of my favorite pictures that I think about.
Yes.
Because that's what I was envisioning when you were talking about that. That you gotta go through that, because we all think that by avoiding the harder things, we think that we're avoiding the suffering. But in reality, we are getting weaker to the suffering and to the hard things, and it's actually making us, suffer the remainder of the time. Like when, for me, making the bad food decisions and letting the anxiety and stuff take over, was choosing to give all the power to that stuff and suffer. Where I have the same problems and stuff, I think, but when you face them, just like Jordan Peterson talks about, you just get stronger. So the same problems, same dragons, they just they completely and totally lose their power over you, because you get resilient to them, you get stronger.
Absolutely. Someone asked about psychedelics and going through psychedelic and approaches in order for healing, because psychedelics have been shown clinically to build new neural pathways. I do actually very much like alternative variations for building new neural pathways quickly. I think it's kind of like a cheat sheet. However, you guys have to remember that if I piss into a Coke, you're going to be like, no, I'm not going to drink that. There's piss in the Coke. You're like, yeah, but what if I add some like frosting to it, or, like some flavor to it? It does not take the piss out of the Coke, right? And so what we have to realize is, like, when we do those things, when we opt to take the easy route through like psilocybin mushrooms, or like DMT, dimethyltryptamine, or tetrahydra, what's it called? Anyway, I'm getting lost in the weeds here. But when you decide to take these psychedelics in order to pave these new pathways, it has not cured the old problems that are still happening. Does that make sense, guys?
For
So
sure.
like, yeah. So if you still have these routes in your brain that lead you to these panic attacks and stuff, you might feel good temporarily and it might help you for a little bit, but it's going like it hasn't cured up what's back here, and that fire is still going to burn. And so the fire might look a little bit prettier for a little while, but that fire is still burning. And so what we have to do, if you are going to, I strongly suggest, because when you have demons in here and you go into the psychedelic world, you might make yourself a lot worse, because you might be opening up pathways that might send you straight to the devil. I'm speaking a little bit from experience in some avenues. I don't want to self-convict right now, but in a loose sense, let's say I know what you're talking about. You got to make sure that you get yourself healed in the right way and your brain is working properly and you are in a great mental state, which oftentimes if you're using psychedelics in order to help your mental state, oftentimes that shows you're not in a good enough basis mental state in order to go into this avenue of alternative therapy for your mental health, which is opening up these new alternatives. Because remember, it's very deliberate. When you open up these pathways that are building new things, right? It's fracking into different parts of your brain. You have no idea which angle it's going to go. And right now, if most of your electricity in your brain is going towards anxiety, it might pave even thicker avenues and frack even thicker towards those areas of anxiety, phobias, paranoia, so on and so forth. So you got to be very careful. So in my opinion, yes, given the fact that you've already taken care of this carnivore, in the sense that you've already taken care of the natural processes and the way your brain is supposed to function up here.
He was just making sure, he wasn't talking about self-treating.
But I mean, for other people though, because
oh, you cut out for 1 second. He'll be right back. His Starlink's just getting kind of calibrated, I think. There you go. You're back.
I'm so sorry about that. But yeah, I just want to say that if for other people who are thinking about that route, because I have tried everything. My wife was on going on ketamine treatments for a while, and none of those things helped us trying that. It wasn't until we were on it's weird. The most spiritual I ever have been was 5 days into a fast. It wasn't when I was on a mind altering drug.
Right.
The most spiritual I've ever been, right? The most connected I've ever felt with anything else in this universe was 5 days into a fast while I was fat adapted. Period. Awesome. The most spiritual part of my life, even though when I got this tattoo of, this Buddha right here, the enlightened one, and I have all these hippie tattoos. When I got these tattoos, I thought I was like spiritual and connected, but I was a fraction of what I am now on the carnivore diet, just to give you an idea. And man, yeah, 5 days into a fast after being fat adapted was like, you can feel God talking to you all the time, whether you're religious or not. Like, you feel that connection.
That's awesome. You want to tell the people a little bit about Saturday's call in SBG?
Yeah, absolutely. So Saturday's call in SBG is a men directed call. And when I say men directed, it is the fact that the conversation is being directed by men for men, right? And though we don't discount anything that females go through, I am not a female, and I haven't gone through female hormones. And if there's one thing I learned about being married, man, I am wrong a lot of the times when I make assumptions about women. So I don't want to make, Todd and I don't want to make that mistake. The thing is, like, what we have been through. We have been through men's mental health, our mental health, and we've seen so many other men. I've lost friends to suicide. Todd has lost, 3 good friends to suicide in the last 22 months, right?
Yeah, a couple of years now. Yep.
And people that didn't look like they were suffering. And as as Todd starts his channel about the carnivore cure, he thought most people would be talking to him about his incredible weight, but most of the people that reach out to him are about their mental health. The fact that like they've been faking any sort of life of like this front that they've been living for such a long time, and they're just going through the motions, as Joe Rogan says, just suffering in silence, right? Like a men suffering in despair quietly. And so our goal is to, let's get that on the forefront. Let's put that in the highlight. Let's say right now there are 135 people committing suicide every single day, and then 68% of those are white males. You're 4 times more likely to commit suicide if you're a man. And so, not to say that women aren't going through their issues, because they absolutely are. I just can't speak to them, and I don't have the qualifications to speak to them. But I have suffered. Todd has suffered, and we know that men are being disenfranchised in this area. And so, I want to make sure that because this is what I needed, right? Todd, isn't this what you needed when you were going through?
Oh, for sure. And I didn't even know it, to be honest with you. And that's exactly why we're doing this too, is because I didn't even know that I needed a community till I got here. And then I felt like an idiot. Like, why was I shying away from these things? Because they're so helpful. I mean, there's 16,000 members in SBG, and they've all broke trail ahead of us, right? And so these members go through there, and they all have experience to share with everybody, and they've all troubleshot, little issues that they had going through Carnivore. And what with that big of a think tank, with actual day-to-day, real life human kind of experiments that are going on, you're seeing the truth kind of shake out, right? It's no longer just anecdotal. These are a lot of numbers of people doing things consistently, having results, and telling you how they got past digestive issues, brain fog, low energy, how they became fat adapted, how they got over leg cramps, how they, whether they need electrolytes, whether they don't, when they need them. I mean, there's just a million, how they got over carb addiction, how they got over soda addiction, how they got over caffeine addiction, how they got over alcohol addiction, all these things that you watch these people go through, and they give you feedback. And then in real time, not just in chat or video, but like in live Zoom calls where you can talk to people, you can converse, people become friends. You get to see, their actual progress and the transformation that they're going through, and that these people are sticking with it. So it's, because the reason why we started doing this call on SBG is because just like Chad said, I was getting the overwhelming majority of people were not calling me just about diet. They were calling me about mental health. And so I've been trying to help a bunch of them with diet and mental health on the outside of, just like in the DMs on Instagram and instant messenger on Facebook and my emails and stuff. And I'm trying to help them, but nobody ever sticks with it outside of the community. And the reason why is because I can only talk to them, each one of these guys, like an hour a week. And then for the other, 167 hours out of the week, they're back into the world that has been formed by big food and big drug, big food, big pharma. And everybody talks them out of doing carnivore. They because people talk in their ear and tell them that they're going to have heart disease, they're going to have high blood pressure, they're going to have, cancer, that's not sustainable, this is ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. They talk them out of it, and they don't have a support network on the inside, where what I find is when we have people in the community, and then and they get to see everybody, not just me and not just Chad as a result, but all the members that are going through it in real time. And you start to hear the same stories and the same results and the same experiences and the same breakthroughs over and over and over again. It stops being anecdotal and just this, pie in the sky dream, like another fad diet that you're going on. And it starts to look like a reality. It starts to look like a path forward. It starts to look like the end of, the light at the end of the tunnel, the way out for you. And then you can latch onto that, and it'll take you there.
I think it's also like a search engine for real life people, because like when you're going through these problems and you Google it, you only hear articles about things, if that makes sense. But when you go into SBG, it's like you get to go into a community, and like, does anybody else have a problem with this? And then all of a sudden you get like 5 people flocking to your instantly who dealt with that problem. And this is how they got over the problem.
For sure. 100%. Yeah, exactly. I didn't that's just the thing is I didn't realize it either. I thought that I was, I had so much anxiety and depression because of my health. I thought that it was just from my circumstances. But the very first thing that healed within, like 3 weeks was depression and anxiety, and that I didn't even realize that it was a hormone issue. But that's where all that was coming from, was poor gut health and hormones. And once you actually feed your body the proper, I mean, honestly, it was the animal fat, I think, did the most help in a short period of time. Your body needs that animal fat so much that it all cured up. And I was like, you mean all these years of just being completely and totally dominated by this, all it took was 3 weeks eating ribeyes? Like, that's why I was like, this is crazy, because I mean, I was on the edge several times of not being here, several times in my life, and all it took was eating meat. And I'm thinking, I'm no genius, so how do I stumble upon this? And I'm supposed to believe that the experts don't know this? Like, it's just not possible. It's not possible.
And
I don't know.
what you're saying is so, like, when you decide to be intentional with your diet, you have to start educating yourself, because you're no longer outsourcing your health. You're no longer outsourcing your nutrition. So you have to know. And when you joined a group like the Steak and Butter Gang, I think this is the most awesome part, is because when you ask there, it's not all the time coaches and experts answering your questions all the time. It's like your average Joe who's now been educated about their diet. And the cool thing is, like, we're not sitting here like signing off on a bunch of things like, yes, you've been educated this way and now you have the blessing and now you can go answer questions. It's the answers are objective once you get on the right path. And so as you go in there as a brand new person, it's like, hey, I'm having a problem with leg or heart palpitations, let's say. And it's like all of a sudden you're going to have like all these people who have been through the heart palpitations. They educated themselves about it. They're like, okay, this happened for about, a couple weeks for me. And this person did it for a week. And this person only had it once. And this other person had it about a month, but then it went away. Here's all the things that we went through to fix that and to help with that. And then now you're having, it's like the Googling a database of real life people who you can ask about their symptoms. And since you have such a wide database, everybody in there has had every symptom that you can think of, and they're willing to help, and they love being in there to help you. It reminds me of like my jiu-jitsu community is like, even though you're only like a 2 or 3 stripe white belt, if there's a brand new white belt that comes in there, you all of a sudden realize how much you know because you've been training for 9 months or whatever the case may be, and how much you learned in that 9 months being intentional about learning something new, where that white belt, that brand new person doesn't know anything, and you're so excited to help. And so now you have just so many people that you can get information. They are actually closer to that transition from being being not carnivore to carnivore, that they are living closer and they have a better memory and a better recollection of how they transitioned into carnivore. So I think that the Steak and Butter Gang and having a community is perfect like that, because when you join, you have that support system of people who are willing to help and who have all had the same symptoms. And you start to realize, like, okay, I'm not alone in this. This is what everybody goes through, and everyone tends to be better on the other side. So
100%.
I love that. And I got really excited about this podcast this time. I don't know. I had a lot to get off my chest in this podcast. I'm happy that I did, because it's been sitting with me. Like, last week was a little bit like slower for me. You know what I mean? There was a lot happening, but this week I was sitting on a lot of kind of like built up like frustration with the way the system happens and how they gaslight us, and how they make you feel like a bad person for taking your health into your own hands. And then they start to gaslight you to be like, you're going to die by eating this way.
Right. No, I 100% agree. And, these are the conversations I think are important that we got to keep having. And I love that the message is getting out there. I'm very hopeful because I keep seeing this community growing and growing. I'm finding more people just in my personal life that are trying carnivore, heard of carnivore, interested in carnivore, and a small group of people that are coming around to it. But then you even see what's going on in Congress with Michaela and Jordan Peterson, putting things out there, right? And with RFK bringing things,
Yo,
I mean, things are really coming a long way. So I think the future is bright. I think we are winning this battle slowly but surely. We're definitely gaining ground. You cannot bury the truth for forever, right? In this age of information, people are going to find out. Here's Charlie. Repeatedly in the carnivore community, people talk about when they become fat adapted, their brain turns on for the first time and they can remember. They feel like they start living. Absolutely. I mean, I don't talk about this a whole lot either, but when I was stuck in that chair, I got COVID. COVID went pretty wrong for several weeks, right? It wasn't good. I was in pretty rough shape. Scarred up my lungs, gave me congestive heart failure, and then I proceeded to gain 84 pounds of fluid over the next 3 weeks, swelled up like a ginormous balloon. And that fluid was causing all sorts of issues, but one of the things it was causing too was high blood pressure. And so for months, I was trying to get that fluid off with all sorts of home remedies and things. But I kept waking up. Every night I would wake up, I'd try to sleep, and I could only sleep in like 1 hour intervals because I would stop breathing when I was sleeping. And then when I'd stop breathing, my oxygen would dip really low. And it would usually get into, and this was before I was on oxygen. It would usually get into, like the high 70s to low 70% saturation, which is not good on its own. But I would usually wake up gasping for air, and I'd have this confused fat headache that I'd wake up with, and I'd have to take deep breaths and kind of get my oxygen back. But then I could usually get my wits about me again within 10 minutes, and things would feel fine. But there's definitely a shot of cortisol because when that would happen, because there was definitely a big stressor that had happened. But after like 3 months, something bad happened, and one day I must have just not woke up for a long time or something. Because when I did, I had the worst splitting headache I'd ever had. And I was more confused than I'd ever been. And my oxygen was like, I forget what it was, but it was in the mid to low 50s. It was like 54, 56% saturation. It was as low as it had gotten. But that time when I woke up, I was way more confused. And it didn't just go away in like 10 minutes. It took like 6 hours before I even start to feel remotely normal again. But what was crazy was I don't know, I couldn't recall words. I couldn't string together sentences. I was not very articulate, and I just kept stumbling over words. I could see them in my head, but I couldn't pull them up. And that stayed that way for quite a while until I went through priming, basically. It got better on the way to priming, but priming fixed the last of it. But when I went to the hospital, because I finally ended up having to go to the hospital, they put me on IV Lasix and were pulling the fluid off of me. And when that was happening, they said, well, we think you had a stroke. They put me on blood thinners, and they said, we think you had a stroke, but you're too big to put in the MRI machine, so we can't confirm it. So, but it took about 6 months for me to get all of the words back and be able to speak normally again. And I highly believe that was carnivore and the healing effects of carnivore and getting rid of that inflammation, So I don't know. It's crazy what can heal, It's crazy what can heal on this diet. And it never ceases to amaze me. I think about all the things that came back, and it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. When you look up the list out there of the things that have been healed with carnivore, it just blows me away. Like infertility, cancer, multiple MS. I'll just say MS.
Yeah.
Dementia, Alzheimer's, anxiety, depression, PTSD, like physical things. Like what was Kerry Mann's? He had heart failure.
He had congestive heart failure, I believe, but he had a heart murmur as well, and he had depression
Exactly.
and anxiety as well.
But the heart like thing that he was born with is gone now. Something he lived with his whole life
For
is
sure.
gone. You know what I mean? The physical alterations, people's jaws coming back, like just incredible healing. I'm so glad that you have healed, Todd, because when
Oh,
I met you in Wyoming, I felt like it was special. I was like really excited to talk to you. Um,
I
and
appreciate
you know, it's cool to talk to Dr. Anthony Chafee, and it's cool to see Bella, right? And you know, me, it's like you kind of see them, and you're like, okay, like this is cool. I met them, but then when I knew about your story, and when I was talking to you, it was just like so cool and so awe to be like in front of somebody who's fought such a hard battle. You know,
that.
like Dr. Anthony Chafee is a badass, and he's done some cool things with his life. You know what
For
I
sure.
mean? And
Oh, for sure.
right, but like to see somebody like you who has brought their life to the brink of what it means to be alive and dead, right? Like
Right.
you pushing the deaths, you were like ringing death's doorbell, like, hey, let me in.
I
And
was.
to see where you are now, you know what I mean?
Oh, I
It's like
appreciate
you know when you see like a personal trainer out there and is like, oh yeah, that's what you used to look like, and this is what you look like now.
it.
Yeah,
Right.
compared to the guy was like, oh, you've been an athlete your whole life and you're ripped, and now you're like bro science guy. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna help me lose weight. You know, like it. You really, when you speak, like you speak with conviction and you speak with deliberation, and I love that about you. I think everybody heals, or everybody hears what you're saying on the inside when you speak. So like I know you're saying words and like that's impacting us, but like we're hearing the conviction within your soul when you talk. And so I love that about you. And so that's why I like really gravitated towards you and connecting with you and like starting to build a friendship with you, because you're the kind of people I want to have around, and you're the kind of carnivore story I want to hear all the time.
I appreciate that very much. You know, all I can say is I do feel like I got kind of a second chance at this. Like I didn't think I was coming out of that hole. You know, I thought it was too deep, right? But God pulled me out of that hole, so that's what this is about, right? And that's what that's why I just keep saying I think the gloves got to come off, and we have to stop being on the. We have to stop defending. We have to stop defending our choices in this lifestyle of eating. You know, this way of eating, and we have to start taking this to their doorstep. And I'm talking, metaphorically speaking, don't go out and do anything crazy, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, I'm speaking about, you know, we get people in here that say I'm a nurse, I'm this, I'm that, what you're saying is dangerous and whatever. And the thing is that that information almost killed me. And I'm not saying that all nurses are bad or that all doctors are bad. I'm talking about the institution that trains them into this dogmatic system that is bought and paid for by big food and big pharma. That's clearly just a money machine, right? And it's not about health. It's not about the actual health care of the people. It's about management of people and their symptoms and making money out of them. And that's why we got to start fighting them. We can't sit here and make excuses or feel like we have to justify because they've been indoctrinated by the system. We have to go ahead and ask them, whose lives are they changing, right? Who are they really healing, or who are they getting
Exactly.
stuck on drugs? Whose lives are they really healing? Because when I hear these sanctimonious medical professionals, or who claims to be medical professionals, come into the live stream and tell me what I'm telling people is dangerous, I guarantee you that if they've been doing that very long, their advice has probably killed somebody, right?
Hmm.
Somebody has probably died in their care under their supervision and their recommendation of drugs. Somebody's given all these people drugs that are committing suicide. Somebody's given all these people drugs that are going home and having heart attacks and getting cancer and having autoimmune diseases, right? Somebody's giving them these drugs and giving them this bad advice and not talking to them about diet. So who's causing all the problems? Who's doing the damage, really?
You are so right. You are so right. Dr. Chafee has a quote where he's like, everyone blames these people for being sick because they're not listening to the doctor's recommendations. He goes, no, they're getting sick because they are listening to the doctor's recommendations.
Right.
Most people consciously want to be healthy. And when they're given advice, they take it seriously most of the time as much as they can. And how many people have you heard getting cancer? Had lung cancer, never smoked a day in their life, got liver cancer, never drank a day in their life. Like all these people who lived intentional lives, those people who are getting cancer, we know plenty of them. Those people who are dying are getting MS or autoimmune disorders or hypothyroidism or whatever. These are the people are oftentimes the healthy ones, the ones who have been listening, the ones who have been paying attention and being health conscious and trying to go plant-based and do low fat and all this other stuff. Like those are the ones who are getting the diseases. And then man, it's genetics. And you just feel like you're playing the wrong end of a card game. You know what I mean? Like, I hope it doesn't happen to me. God, if I get cancer, this is, you know what I mean? It's like, once you start to really drill down and being intentional, like being like to the point where we are, where we're questioning the healthcare system, you're like, oh, there's very exact correlations happening here with what you're suggesting, and there's actually no correlations between what you're suggesting for us.
Right.
Right.
100%.
So anyway,
Right.
we should answer this question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Have you guys seen any of the interviews with Dr. Casey Means? She and her brother have been speaking out about the medical institution.
Casey and Callie. Oh yeah, dude.
Pretty incredible, huh?
Those guys, when they get up there and they speak, they give me hope that no matter what I say here, being a little guy, that I'm not going to get assassinated. They would be the ones to get assassinated first. You know what I mean? If they get assassinated, maybe I'll kind of hush up what I'm saying. But like, they are on the front lines. Them and Bobby Kennedy, like
For sure.
those guys are on the front lines for sure. They're also kind of like a vindication to us who have been saying it for a little while, and all the people who called us crazy.
100%.
You know what I mean? Are getting validation.
Yeah, I'm loving it. And it's like, go ahead, take their best shot. It's just going to put more light on it, like you can't cover up the truth, Charlie, SBG is a treasure chest of information, not only client to peer, but peer-to-peer exchange, also people helping people. 100%, Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Love the SBG. It's so exciting that everyone is healing with Carnivore. 100%.
Yeah, dude. Those guys, the mean siblings, they are taking on the pharmaceutical companies. That's oh man, that's scary to be taking them on. That
for sure. 100%. I'll be praying and asking guidance if I should try strict Carnivore for 3 months. Trigger gain mental clarity and energy. Oh man, I don't think you'll regret it. Just try to get into a group, a community, but definitely if it's for mental clarity, definitely lean heavily on the fat. Now if you haven't done high fat carnivore, you're going to have some digestive issues, and this is why you need a community, because you need help walking through that and going through all the ideas and understanding. Because if you just jump into it and everything's running right through you and you're on the pod every day, it's going to be a little bit difficult. So, but definitely for the mental clarity, you'll want to lean on high fat carnivore.
Yeah. Just to give you some background, Mist, my brain fog, phobias, anxiety, and somebody asked about agoraphobia in there, and I wanted to tell them to this that yeah, I had agoraphobia bad. I had many phobias. And I went from somebody from not having any phobias to having phobias about everything, the most ridiculous things. And they were all so irrational. But regardless, I used to have so many phobias and so much brain fog and so much anxiety that I used to beg and pray for anybody who would answer, for anything that would answer. I would beg, like legit beg for just 1 hour of mental clarity. So just give me 1 hour. I need to know what 1 hour of feeling like a human is again. It's, and I suffered for 10 years and it was horrible suffering. 10 years of these phobias and 10 years of the suffering. Said, please, God, please, 1 hour of mental clarity.
Right.
And when I got my first, when I woke up, okay, like on one of my fasts, I woke up and I was at hour 48. I just finished hour 48. I woke up with no brain fog, and I was like cautiously optimistic. And then when I realized as the day went on that I was living a life with no brain fog, I got emotional and I was emotionless. Like if you ask my wife and my kids how like numb I was like crying for no reason at random parts of the day because I finally was feeling relief of that pressure.
Hmm.
And so it wasn't until I got into fasting, and it wasn't until I got into strict carnivore where I started feeling that. So Mist, if you go strict carnivore, I I can't possibly be a better advocate. I can't imagine who would be a better advocate than telling you, like, please, if you are suffering from lack of mental clarity, there's nothing else out there that I know of, and I've been through every fad diet and everything that you can think of uh, to find health, and I didn't find it until I went carnivore and fasted. So
100%. C19 recovery. Yeah, it's 100% true. And yeah, the Charlie is that he was hitting on that earlier too, about how life changing it is to have a high functioning mental capacity again, like your brain working well, right? Not suffering through the brain fog too. I mean, there's so many different things on the mental side of things between handling your hormones right, not being crippled by anxiety and stress and fears and phobias and all these things, as well as depression, but also just the clarity of clarity and how quick your mind works and how quick recall is and how healthy your mind is. It's quite incredible for sure.
absolutely, yeah. You had the blueberries and
Right.
yeah, stay away from those carbs.
Yeah, they are the devil for sure. Well, man, this has been awesome. Yeah, so we just want to shout it out one more time. What we're trying to do is grow the men's mental health group too in SBG, because we want, men are a pretty disenfranchised group, mainly because, they're told that toxic masculinity is bad and all this stuff nowadays. So that's coming to cost. Plus, guys just don't talk, right? We don't want to look weak. We don't want to look vulnerable, right? That's what our job is, not to be those things. So we're trying to create a group of guys where we can get our crap together, to be honest with you. So we're trying to do that in SBG where they could stick to a diet. So we'd love if you guys have any, if you guys are interested in it, if you want to come meet us over there on Saturdays, we'd love that group to grow. If you have any veterans in your life that you think could benefit from this, or any men period in your life that are just kind of holding it all down and just sucking it up. I think that are in need of some kind of relief. It'd be great if you guys could pass it along and see if you can help them find their way into SBG so that we can start helping them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first time I found SBG, it was through your interview, right? And the interview I was referring to earlier, where you were talking about priming and how you lost a lot of weight and how you healed. When I first passed SBG, I ended up not joining first glance because it seemed to be very female oriented, which makes sense because Bella and a lot of people with weight issues, skin issues, hormonal issues, things like that. And I was like, man, I'm having like a lot of men's issues and a lot of mental health issues, and this seems to be orientated in a different direction. And so when Todd, Ray, Bella, Dr. Phil, they started reaching out to be like, hey, I hear what you're saying, and I think changes need to be made. It was an honor to start pioneering a place where men can feel comfortable coming on the channel, talking about the mental health issues, because I knew if I would have seen that, I would have joined instantly. So please help us get the message out to be like, hey, like, we had a 10-year-old kid on there, right, the other
Yeah,
day.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And like, so we have anywhere from 10-year-olds to men who are older who are starting carnivore and becoming aware that their diet affects their mental state, and they have questions about that. How long before this? How long before that? Why does it affect my mental state? Why do I have brain fog? Why does carnivore help with this? And I wanted a place to ask those questions. And so now that there is a place that we are nourishing those types of questions with those types of environment, to, you know, like men out there with erectile dysfunction, and men out there with low sperm counts, and men out there who feel like they're not men anymore. Like, this is a place to come and feel comfortable talking about men's issues. Women have no problem talking oftentimes about like their cycles and other things, but men, it's kind of like, no, we don't talk about that. This is a place where you talk about it now before it's too late. You know what I mean? Like, and so anyway, thank you, Todd, for paving that path for us to be able to nourish that environment and to give men a place to relate their diet with their mental health issues. Because I think that's, like you said the other day, oftentimes men aren't too worried about their health, or not their health, they're a little bit of weight around the gut. Like, yeah, I'm a little bit chubby, whatever. But what they do care about is not being able to be a man. What they do care about is their depression and their brain fog and their anxiety. They do care about those things.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what we want to hear, Kev. As we just need to get the word out to people, because you know, they might be incredibly amazed what happens just in, you know, 60 days, what can happen for their mental health. And on carnivore, with some good direction and kind of seeing it firsthand from people that have kind of lived through it and came through the other side, it's pretty incredible. So that's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you, Chad, coming in with me on it, because with your experience with PTSD and you know, being a combat veteran and everything, that's huge. You know, that is huge.
Absolutely. And though I am a veteran, I my PTSD did not come from getting shot at. My PTSD did not come from getting blown up. My PTSD came from almost dying during a training event. So it can come from anywhere. So, I mean, I used to think that in order to have PTSD as a man, you had to get shot at, or you had to see some atrocious things and stuff. But what's weird is all the things I've seen, the thing that got me, the thing that put me down this dark spiral was the weirdest non-combatant thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I hear you. And yeah, it's just incredible. It'll be great when we start getting some feedback for some people, and the meetings are starting to grow. This is just our third one coming up this Saturday, but they are starting to grow, and we're starting to get some good feedback. And put in the chat if you guys would be more comfortable if it was a men's only meeting, or, you know, because right now we do have some women in there that are just observing, because we want them to bring their husbands. And just like last week happened with that young man that came in, the mom brought him in because he needed some help. And so we want to leave that avenue open, but also if you'd be more comfortable, we can make it men's only, you know? So let us know what you guys think.
Yeah. PTSD from that. What sucks is when we have a traumatic event and our hippocampus is messed up, and what's very weird is if our system isn't primed for growing BDNF and HGH and releasing new stem cells and growing gray matter and having proper mitochondrial function, that PTSD, those events like those car accidents and stuff, will just continue to spiral us down. And we feel like there's no way of like getting out of that black hole. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's not until we find something like carnivore that allows that healing process to happen, to allow the mechanisms to grow from something like an auto accident. And PTSD can come from the most random of places in today's society, you know, and car accident is a completely valid one.
For sure. Yeah, it's probably the direction we're going to have to go here pretty soon. And so we'll probably finish out this month and then probably start at men's only next month. We're just trying to give people some time to get their husbands and people involved. But yeah, we're probably just going to go because that, and as it is, too, the other thing is we have already, so we do 3 Iron Sharpens Irons open calls a month, and then we have 1 men's only call a month as it is right now. That's men only. And so, but we'll probably make this men's only every week in the future here after this month. So, because that's only 2 more meetings. And so that way we can kind of, because that'll be 4 men and women meetings on men's health. That way we can get some data on there, and then we'll probably swap it over to just men's only and call that good. So,
All right.
perfect.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it, guys. Well, that's 2 hours. So we are going to let you guys go. But one more time, I got to do a few little housekeeping plugs here. Check out Combat Carnivore if you could join his channel. If you guys like what he's saying, we'd appreciate you supporting his channel. And then also SBG, if you guys are interested in joining Iron Sharpens Iron Zoom calls on Saturdays or in the open chat, please feel free to click that link in the description of the video on YouTube and join the Steak and Butter Gang. And then also, if you guys are interested in going to Hack Your Health in 2025 in Tampa, Florida, I'm going to be speaking on a panel with Bella Steak and Butter Gang, the SBG Gang. Love to see you there. There's a coupon code in the description that gets you $100 off your tickets, which is the cheapest it'll be ever, which is pretty awesome. And also I started trying out those Carnivore bars, and I'm quite enjoying them. And I have a link for 10% off in the description for Carnivore bars. But I appreciate y'all. And yep, Charlie, he's one of our awesome men in the Iron Sharpens Iron meeting in SBG too. So, as well as here, we appreciate you, Charlie, and say hi to Marilyn for me. Appreciate and love you guys. Let's see. I like that. That's a good sign-off handle for sure. But we appreciate y'all, and we will see you next time.